World War I. You've probably heard the story, right? It all kicked off with a single gunshot. But is that really the whole story? Not even close. Today, we're going to dig into what really caused one of the deadliest conflicts in human history.
And to really get a sense of the stakes here, just look at this number, 20 million. That's how many people, soldiers and civilians alike, died. This was a war that literally redrew the map of the world and brought ancient empires crashing down. I mean, the scale is it's staggering.
So that brings us back to the big question. Did this unbelievable catastrophe, all 20 million of those deaths, really happen just because some student shot a prince? The answer, as you might have guessed, is a lot more complicated than that.
Actually, there's a great way to think about it. Imagine Europe in 1914 isn't a peaceful continent. It's a giant mountain of dynamite just sitting there, waiting for a spark. And the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, well, that was just the matchstick. The real question is, what was all that dynamite made of? What made the whole continent so ready to explode?
Okay, so to understand that spark, we've got to follow the powder trail leading up to it. And believe me, that trail didn't start in 1914. No, we have to go back decades earlier to a really volatile part of the world, the Balkans.
So let's rewind. It all kicks off back in 1878. The Austro-Hungarian Empire gets what's supposed to be temporary control over Bosnia-Herzegovina. But then, 30 years later, in 1908, they basically say, you know what? This is ours now, and they officially annex it. Well, as you can imagine, this made people in Bosnia and in neighboring Serbia absolutely furious. They had this strong shared heritage, you see. Things got so heated so fast that a full-blown war was barely avoided in 1909. But that anger? Oh, that was just simmering under the surface.
And check this out. This political cartoon from back then just sums it all up, doesn't it? You've got the Austrian emperor literally ripping Bosnia-Herzegovina right off the map. And the poor Ottoman Sultan, who used to be in charge, he's just standing there, completely helpless. You can see why for the Bosnian people, this didn't feel like freedom. It felt like they were just trading one boss for another.
All of this anger and frustration gave birth to a powerful new movement, Young Bosnia. And these weren't just protesters, they were revolutionary students with a huge dream. They didn't just want to free Bosnia, they wanted to unite all South Slavs into one brand new nation, a country they would call Yugoslavia. And it was exactly this kind of intense, passionate nationalism that set the stage for what happened next.
So, fast forward to June 28, 1914. The Archduke Franz Ferdinand, the heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, is visiting Bosnia. The assassination plot was frankly a bit of a disaster at first. Someone throws a bomb, and it misses his car completely. The Archduke is obviously shaken up, and he decides to scrap his plans and go visit the people who were injured in the bombing. But then, an unbelievable twist of fate. His driver takes a wrong turn. A simple mistake. The car has to stop to back up, and when it does, it stops right in front of another assassin, a 19-year-old named Gavrilo Princip. He's standing just 5 feet away, and this time, he didn't miss. And there it is. The match was lit. But how on earth does one assassination in the Balkans lead to a world war? Well, the answer is a crazy, tangled web of secret deals and alliances that had basically turned the entire continent of Europe into one giant tripwire.
And once that wire was tripped, the dominoes just started falling, one after another, with terrifying speed. Okay, watch this. First, Austria-Hungary, totally enraged, declares war on Serbia. Then, Russia, which saw itself as the big protector of all Slavic people, jumps in to defend Serbia. That move triggers Germany, which is allied with Austria-Hungary, to declare war on Russia. Then France, Russia's ally, has to join in. And finally, Great Britain gets dragged in because of its own treaties. Just like that, in a matter of weeks, a local fight became a global war.
So when the dust settled, you basically had Europe split into two massive armed camps. On one side, you had the Triple Alliance, which we now call the Central Powers. That was mainly Germany and Austria-Hungary. And on the other side, you had the Triple Entente, or the Allied powers, Great Britain, France, and Russia. And you have to understand, these weren't just simple, we'll help you if you get attacked pacts. They were practically a guarantee that any small fire could and would turn into a massive inferno.
All right, so we've seen the matchstick and the tripwire. Now let's get to the real heart of the matter, the dynamite. What were these huge, deep-seated forces that made Europe so incredibly volatile? Well, historians usually boil it down to 4 main causes that have been bubbling under the surface for decades.
And there's actually a super easy way to remember them with the acronym MAIN. That stands for militarism, alliances, imperialism, and nationalism. Let's take a quick look at each one and see how they all tangled together to create a situation where a massive war felt, well, pretty much inevitable.
First up, M for militarism. And this wasn't just about having a big army. It was a full-blown national obsession. All the major powers in Europe got it into their heads that the only way to be a truly great nation was to have the biggest, baddest military. And this belief kicked off a totally frantic and incredibly expensive arms race.
And I mean, the numbers are just insane. Get this. Between 1870 and 1914, that's just 44 years, the military spending of these big European powers went up by more than 4 times. It jumped from 94 million pounds to almost 400 million. Every country was desperate to have bigger armies, newer ships, and deadlier guns than their neighbor. You can just imagine the tension that created across the entire continent.
And here's where it gets really weird. This whole thing, it was basically a family feud. I'm not kidding. The rulers of Germany, Russia, and Great Britain, they were all first cousins. Now, it wasn't just some personal squabble, of course. Their rivalries were supercharged by I for imperialism, that mad dash to grab colonies and build the biggest empire, and N for nationalism, this intense belief that your country is better than everyone else's. Each one of these cousins wanted to prove that their nation was the top dog.
But that's all about kings and empires. What about the millions of regular people, the ordinary guys who had to go and actually fight and die in this war? Why on earth would they sign up to fight for the pride of a bunch of emperors? Well, that's where you see this huge, tragic gap between the propaganda they were sold and the awful reality they were about to face.
So on the one hand, you have the propaganda posters selling the war as this grand adventure. It's all about glory and heroism and doing your noble duty for your country. But then you have the reality, the letters and poems sent home from the front lines, and they tell a very different story. A story of poison gas, of mangled limbs, of coughing up blood in the mud, and just the most inhumane conditions imaginable in the trenches.
There's this quote from the poet Thomas Hardy that just perfectly captures how absurd and tragic it all was. He imagines a soldier who's just shot another man, and he thinks to himself, "You shoot a fellow down you'd treat if met where any bar is, or help to half a crown." It's heartbreaking, right? Just 2 regular guys who would have been friendly under any other circumstances, forced to kill each other by forces way beyond their control.
And if you need proof of that, look no further than the incredible Christmas Truce of 1914. It's an amazing story. All along the Western Front, British and German soldiers just stopped fighting, on their own. They put down their guns, climbed out of their muddy trenches, and met in the middle. They shared food, sang Christmas carols, and even played soccer together. It's this beautiful, powerful moment that shows you, crystal clear, that the ordinary soldiers didn't hate each other. This war was being driven by the leaders, not by the people.
So in the end, World War I wasn't caused by a single gunshot at all. It was caused by that mountain of dynamite we talked about. Decades of militarism, those tangled alliances, imperial greed, and aggressive nationalism all piled up. The assassination? That was just the tiny match that lit the fuse. And it leaves us with a really important question, one that's just as relevant today. If the spark that starts a conflict is often something small and random, how do we learn to spot the mountains of dynamite in our own world before it's too late?